The movie begins in 1942, amid World War II in French Morocco. Royal Canadian Air Force intelligence officer Max Veyton parachutes into the desert. He walks some distance before meeting a driver who picks him up. The driver then provides him with luggage, a wedding ring, a weapon, and forged documents. The driver informs Max that the woman he is to meet will be wearing a purple dress and to look for the hummingbird. Max arrives at a club in Casablanca where he finds the woman, a French resistance fighter named Marianne Beauséjour. She immediately identifies him and greets him with a kiss. Marianne introduces Max to all her acquaintances, claiming that her husband is a phosphate mining entrepreneur. Max then suggests they go home, pretending they haven't seen each other for months. As Max drives her back to her apartment, he compliments Marianne's portrayal of a loving wife. He also inquires how Marianne survived a previous covert operation when her entire team was killed in Paris. Marianne explains that her success was due to making her emotions appear genuine, convincing everyone around her. She also praises Max's convincing appearance, but criticizes his poor Parisian French accent, noting that in 10 days they will be attending a party in Paris with German leaders. She gives Max the nickname Le Québécois due to his noticeable French-Canadian accent. Max and Marianne's mission is to assassinate the Nazi ambassador. They must continue to pose as a married couple, living together and making their act believable in preparation for their mission to kill the German ambassador at his upcoming party. Max still needs to secure an invitation, so Marianne promises to obtain one from the ambassador's liaison, Herr Hobart. After resting on the roof, Marianne checks on him. She says that the neighbors will find it curious if she doesn't visit him on his first night. They maintain their act as a couple, pretending to have just had sex, and then him going to the roof. She would miss him because she had been sleeping alone for many months, so she comes up to tell him she loves him. At that time, a curious neighbor, whose husband is a German tank commander, watches them, and they are well aware of her. During their conversation, Max reveals his desire to retire to a ranch and live peacefully after the war. The following day, Marianne coaches Max on appearing and sounding more Parisian. She prepares him for an outing with expensive clothes and a cross necklace to signify his Catholic faith. During their conversation, Max mentions a mutual friend, Guy Sangster, a British pilot Marianne saved in Dieppe in 1941. At a cafe, Max spots a German officer from the Abwehr who had interrogated him in Marseille. Fearing compromise, Max follows the officer to a phone booth and kills him as he attempts to phone his superiors. He then shoves a piece of food deep into his throat to make it look as if the man choked. That night, after socializing with some German friends, Marianne and Max continue chatting on the rooftop to maintain their cover as a married couple for the neighbors. Marianne reveals that the failure of the previous operation in Paris was due to the V section not sending help, resulting in her entire team being killed while she managed to escape. The next day, the couple discusses their plans at a makeshift shooting range by the cliffs. During the shooting practice, Marianne has difficulty with the safety mechanism, which Max finds unusual. Later, after they finish, she mentions that the guns will be taped under the champagne table and also notes that the ambassador will arrive at the party precisely at 8:30 p.m., giving them only a short window to kill him before a diversion attack occurs 5 minutes later. Max asks what they'll do if he is late, but Marianne assures him he will be on time, saying he's German. Max then questions her about the earlier incident and wonders if she'll make the same mistake on the night of the assassination, but she reassures him that she'll be fine. Back at their house, they have the fan on while eating because it's very hot. Marianne uses the opportunity to unbutton her shirt to test if Max can be seduced. "I know you're armed with a weapon," she teases. "I'm just checking to see that the safety's engaged." Max resists, essentially saying that having sex with fellow spies gets people killed. He tells her to fasten her buttons, and she responds that the mistake people make in these situations isn't sleeping together, but having feelings for each other. A day before the assassination, they meet with Herr Hobart. Hobart offers them cigarettes, but Max declines, and Marianne explains that her husband is trying to cut down. Hobart says he's only heard good things about Max around town and asks if he speaks any English. Marianne says it's only a little, so Hobart converses with him in French. Hobart tells Max that his wife asked if she could bring him to the ambassador's ball the next day, and Max gives the impression that he doesn't want to attend, using reverse psychology. Marianne then mentions a poker game in the Rue Valence, noting Max's obsession with it, so Max pretends to prefer playing poker over attending the party. Hobart challenges Max to split a deck of cards. If Max draws the low card, he must attend the party, and if not, he can go to his beloved poker game. Max expertly shuffles the deck and picks the low card, achieving his desired outcome. As a last requirement to have his name on the list, Hobart instructs Max to write down the chemical formula of phosphate, which he does, so Hobart says he'll see him tomorrow. Later, the two watch the sunset on the sandy dunes. Aware they might not not survive the mission. When Max asks Marianne about her dream destination, she responds that it doesn't matter where she goes after the war. They take the opportunity to become intimate inside the car during a sandstorm. Soon, they attend the party with multiple Nazi officials present. The ambassador arrives late at 8:30. After chatting with Hobart, they position themselves behind the champagne table where their hidden guns are stashed. As the ambassador delivers a rousing speech, a large explosion occurs outside as planned. The couple flips the table, grabs their guns, and executes the ambassador on the stairway, also killing about 10 other German soldiers and civilians, including Hobart. One of the civilians Marianne guns down is the husband of a good friend, who looks at her with an expression of horror, shock, and disbelief. When Marianne coolly kills the man, the duo makes a hasty exit as the alarms blare, and while on the run, Max asks Marianne to come with him to London and be his wife for real. 3 weeks later in London, Max receives good news from his commander, Frank Heslop, that Marianne is granted permission to settle in England after reviewing her wartime achievements. Max is overjoyed as he can finally marry the woman he loves. They get married and celebrate with the Allied forces, including Heslop and Max's sister, Bridget Vaton. Marianne also surprises Max by revealing her pregnancy during the celebration. An air raid occurs over London. As Marianne goes into labor, she is evacuated from the hospital as bombs fall, and Max stays by her side. Marianne gives birth in the hospital courtyard to a baby girl, whom they name Anna. 1 year later, Max and Marianne have settled into their life as a family. The couple resides in Hampstead, London. Marianne informs Max that she has organized a party to celebrate his victories. After dropping Anna off at a nanny's house and picking up mushrooms, Max is urgently summoned back to the office to meet with his commanding officer, Frank Heslop, and a special operations executive official. They inform Max that Marianne is suspected of being a German spy. The real Marianne Beauséjour had been killed, and a German spy, whom they suspect to be Max's wife, assumed the dead woman's identity. Max learns that Hobart was a dissident whom Hitler wanted dead. The officer orders Max to test Marianne's loyalty through a blue dye operation. Otherwise, both will be executed. Max is tasked with fabricating false intelligence at home after a scheduled phone call to be discovered by Marianne. If intercepted by German transmissions, Max is ordered to personally eliminate her. If complicit, he faces execution by hanging for high treason. They also warn him against conducting his own investigation. Max is infuriated by their distrust of his wife's loyalty, but reluctantly agrees to cooperate. Secretly, he decides to independently investigate to prove them wrong. At home, everything appears normal, and Marianne sticks to her usual routines. Anxiously taking the designated phone call, he gets distracted by his wife and writes down the false information. Later, overwhelmed with guilt and doubt, he remains awake all night. The next day, Max finds an excuse to visit his sister and discuss the operation involving Marianne. He also seeks out Guy Sangster at a nearby hospital, hoping for identification confirmation despite their shared traumatic military history. Sangster suggests that Paul de Lamar, a resistance fighter who collaborated with Marianne in France, might be able to identify her. At the airbase, Max encounters Adam Hunter, a young pilot about to depart for Dieppe. Max gives Adam a photograph with a confidential note asking if the woman pictured is Marianne Beauséjour and instructs him to obtain a definitive answer from Paul. During a party, Max notices a suspicious man briefly conversing with Marianne. She later explains that the man, Lombard, is a jeweler attempting to sell her a diamond brooch. Max pursues Lombard, but concludes he is merely a salesman. Amid the festivities, Frank informs Max that he defied orders, resulting in their plane being shot down because a young soldier delayed due to intoxication. Mid-party, an air raid disrupts the event. A German plane crashes perilously close to their apartment, prompting Max to rush upstairs to protect Anna. Marianne already has her secured, and Max shields them as the plane narrowly misses and crashes in a nearby field. Shaken, Marianne implores Max to spend the entire day together as a family, culminating in a picnic near the downed German aircraft. Later, Max bids Marianne farewell with a kiss and departs to continue his quest for the truth. The following evening, Max assumes the role of a Lysander pilot and flies to France to rendezvous with Paul, held at a local police station. With the aid of the local resistance, Max stages a daring jailbreak. However, Paul, inebriated, provides a dubious identification of the photograph, delaying them enough for a French police officer to alert the Germans. Despite the setback, Max and the resistance overpower the Germans in a fierce skirmish. Before departing, Max shows Paul the photograph of Marianne and asks if he recognizes her. Paul's response initially fails to confirm her identity until he mentions her exceptional rendition of La Marseillaise on the piano, describing her as divine. Back in England, Max insists that Marianne play the piano and perform the French anthem La Marseillaise. After a moment of hesitation, Marianne closes the piano, acknowledging that the truth has surfaced. Tearfully, she confesses that the Germans discovered her in England and threatened harm to Anna unless she cooperated as a spy. She admits to sending the message the previous night under duress. Max is enraged, but asks if she truly loves him. Marianne affirms her love and their life together. Unwilling to harm her, Max decides they must flee. He eliminates the nanny and jeweler, who acted as her handlers. They head to an airfield where Max attempts to start a plane, only to be confronted by Frank and other soldiers. Frank accuses Max of treason and moves to arrest him. As Marianne gently sets Anna in the back seat, she retrieves a gun from the glove compartment, speaking softly to Max in French, "Je t'aime, mon Québécois," and asks him to care for Anna. She turns and takes her own life with a gunshot to the head. Max covers her with his jacket. Frank orders the soldiers present to report that Max executed Marianne as per his orders, so that Max himself will not be punished. In the aftermath of the war, Max fulfills his dream by settling on a ranch in Medicine Hat, Alberta, Canada, where he raises Anna. The final scene depicts an older Max walking through the fields of the ranch with a teenage Anna, as Marianne's voiceover reads a letter she wrote for Anna before her death. Marianne had anticipated that she might not survive. In the letter, she expresses her love for both Max and Anna, reminiscing about their time together in London.